Welcome back to Druidcast with Disbelief and Druid. This week on the Conspiracy Meta, Whistleblowers. Starting out with artificial intelligence news this week, OpenAI whistleblower Suchir Balaji was potentially given the Clinton treatment sometime in the night Sunday. Posting as recently as October 23rd on his thoughts about copyright, fair use, and the philosophical issue of artificial intelligence rampant disregard for copyright, despite, the fact they train machine learning programs on copyrighted materials and therefore profit off of copyrighted materials, allegedly Balaji decided to go through the exit door sooner than anticipated. That's the story anyways. I'm not sure I'm buying it, and I'm not sure anyone else is either. I do find it curious that the same day Zuckerberg and others once again begged California to block OpenAI from becoming a for-profit company, that a supposed hero blowing the whistle on OpenAI is no longer able to witness against them. That's some nice talk from Zuckerberg, who was simultaneously this week put on a terrorism watch list in Ireland. Zuck thinks that OpenAI should be more charitable and free use to the world, a gift to humanity, while he and his friends are just developing inferior competing software to ChatGPT and rampantly ignoring their own calls for ethical ramifications of AI. They continue to make billions and try to shut down anybody who competes with them. Doublespeak is the new language. I doubt Zuckerberg and Elon really want to compete with Sam Altman. It's probably just more guerrilla marketing like Hawktua. Read that as how to make a new household name. Speaking of spit on that thing, girl, after coming under fire for allegedly rug pulling her cryptocurrency, Haliey Welch is now supposedly MIA, missing out on her weekly podcast since Hawkcoin broke the news. Considering all the circumstances around her, who she surrounds herself with, color me surprised for one, but also it feels like a load of malarkey. All the more reason not to trust crypto. It's just counterintelligence. I trust Hawk Girl will be back, and she doesn't really need my help staying in the headlines. Moving on. Javier Milei cuts the deficit in Argentina for the first time in 123 years. 1, 2, 3, presto. If you don't believe that Milei is just controlled opposition, I don't really know what to tell you. They told us they will provide the heroes when we need them. A school shooting happened in Madison, Wisconsin. Biden called for Second Amendment loopholes, and that's about all I have to say about that. Trudeau is considering resigning, but, they've been saying that for a few months now, so we'll see. Trump is on the troll train lately, calling Trudeau a governor and Canada the future 51st state. We'll see. Personally, I'm not a fan of more international border change-ups. Don't move boundary stones. This all feels very portentous to me, considering all the talk about borders these days. Speaking of crossing borders, Russian Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov was quote-unquote assassinated along with his assistant early Tuesday morning in Moscow. An explosive planted on an electric scooter with the equivalent of 300 grams of dynamite has escalated the European powder keg situation even more. While the SS of Ukraine claimed responsibility, stating the day before that Kirillov had been charged and found guilty in absentia for war crimes and the use of banned chemical weapons, whispers circulate of NATO and the CIA's involvement. Is it a coincidence that the chemical weapon guy dies and the same week Russia decides it's going to release an mRNA cancer vaccine for free to its public? Considering that Assad reported him this week for the first time since fleeing Syria, stating that his reason for fleeing was not cowardice, but a drone attack on the Russian base that was sheltering him from an unknown party still, seems to me that the CIA have been pretty busy this week. Speaking of drones in the CIA, I'm sure you have all heard as much as you need to on that subject. Drones appearing outside and inside New Jersey, New York area caused media buzz as drones around the world, 5,000 miles or so away, potentially committed war crimes. People were wondering what they were being distracted from during all this, and I think a drone attack on a Russian military base might be one of them. That, coupled with timely Congress bills on drone surveillance and control measures, Palantir releasing drone warfare commercials during the Army-Navy game, and talks of big tech moving nuclear power into the same area a supposed nuke went missing. Looks like Project Bluebeam isn't happening just yet. But that brings us to the meat of the matter this week. Project Bluebeam. By now, you've probably all heard of some version of Project Bluebeam. Watchmen mainstreamed it for us all in the graphic novel and the TV show, not the movie. What's the speedrun version? Using hologram laser technology, the powers that be will allegedly fake an alien invasion and or a biblical judgment day in order to bring about a quote-unquote world peace, unite the nations under a globalist effort to either defend ourselves from extraterrestrial threats or worship the new Masonic Antichrist in the sky. But where do these ideas come from? There's a lot of truthers out there who like to peddle like they have the whole conspiracy agenda worked out. But the reality is no one knows what our enemies might have in store. Serge, though, was the modern messenger of Project Bluebeam. It should be noted that this idea of alien invasion / Judgment Day scenario faked by the government goes back way further than Serge. He was cribbing from an earlier author, William Guy Carr, who was very influential on a lot of modern people, which his ideas can ultimately be traced back to Jesuits and Masons writing 150 years ago about world wars and protocols of the Elder of Zion. Serge Monast, though, was a Quebecois Canadian, one of those old guard conspiracy theorists like Art Bell. He published a handful of obscure esoteric books before finally in 1994 publishing Project Bluebeam NASA, where he lays out that NASA and the United Nations have a plan to implement a New Age religion with the Antichrist at the head of the New World Order via a technologically simulated second coming of Christ. Starting to sound familiar? Shortly after publishing this book and another on Freemasons, Serge Monast died in 1996 of a heart attack in his home at 51. Also sound familiar? Maybe you knew Suchir, who was president in 1996? All of this might sound familiar, as Serge's plotline is the exact plotline of the missing episode of Star Trek The God Thing. Gene Roddenberry, who I've always kind of suspected to be in the club, was notorious for rejecting religion, to say the least, and wrote this esoteric episode to do away with the discussion once and for all. An alien from another dimension masquerades as Jesus, leading Shatner and co. to realize that all religions on Earth came from this alien source, not a true creator god. The episode was never made for obvious reasons. But where did Serge Monast learn all these facts and concepts? Who are his sources? We live in a different age 30 years later from Serge, and conspiracy conmen and counterintelligence abound. Whether or not there was any veracity to Serge's ideas, there's certainly echoes in our day. Who took the torch from Serge? Arriving in fame right around the same time as Monast's death, actually. Stephen Greer makes the UFO headlines once a month as the authority on aliens with his Disclosure Project. Couple that with Blink-182's Tom DeLonge, who is publicly a contractor for the United States Army since 2019, and has other questionable connections, to put it mildly. It makes you wonder how much of Project Bluebeam and alien UFO disclosure is just a scripted load of propaganda. As we have seen, the drone invasion has come and gone, but the legal ramifications remain. No, Project Bluebeam won't happen today, despite the concept echoing throughout the mainstream news. That's my point, though. If it's on CNN and the like, it's not real. The revolution won't be televised. You won't see what the elite have planned to usher in control. I don't think the next big thing will be a bird flu pandemic, but Gavin Newsom certainly does, and I don't think anyone will be able to see what's coming. Who's to say we aren't already fully controlled? MKUltra is alive and well, and other conspiracy news this week plainly shows it. Question even conspiracy narratives, folks. You never know who's behind spreading these ideas. If you want my guess, I think drones and holograms, it's probably on the right path, but with optogenetics, as I keep saying, as advanced as optogenetics is, who's to say anything we even witness with our eyes isn't just a psychosis-induced hallucination? After all, you have to remember 66% of American adults are on some form of pharmaceutical drugs. Wrapping up this week, rumors of the International Space Station rapidly decaying orbit trickled through the Fed channels on 4chan. It should be noted that precisely 333 days before this conspiracy news dropped, the film ISS came out on January 19th, about nuclear war breaking out on the surface between the US and Russia as the astronauts on the ISS fight for control and the International Space Station starts to what? Rapidly decay in orbit. This mixed with another film specifically produced by, who? Tom DeLonge, featuring a cube alien invasion witnessed from the ISS, mixed with all the news about Russians, war, aliens, drones, and nukes this week. I think something strange is going on. All eyes on the ISS. You know, that kind of sounds like all eyes on ISIS. Supposedly, those two people from Boeing Starliner are still trapped on the ISS, with news this week saying their departure will now be delayed until March. What does it all mean? I don't know, but once again, check out Bobby Pillow's page for more, tying in Chernobyl, Matt Perry, Batman, and more into this. That's it for this week. Catch us every weekend for the latest episode. There's no shortage of conspiracies and strange happenings right now, so if you felt I missed something important, let me know in the comments. Like, follow, subscribe, share this video and all of my clips I put out there with others. If you think what I'm doing is a much needed service, please help me to let others know. Next week is Saturnalia started on the 17th and culminating next week in the celebration of Nimrod, Osiris, Dionysus, Hades, and name them all if you want. Keep those evil spirits at bay. Until next weekend, keep seeking truthers. You can find the answers you're looking for if you look hard enough.